This is a story about what happens when you put a sarcastic loner into another world and leave him away from his classmates, who's not interested in wild adventures, but who wouldn't mind having some cool powers. Unfortunately, because of his loner, neat personality, he's last in line when the magic cheat skills get divvied up, so by the time it's Haruka's turn, there are no good choices left. Now Haruka will have to take on this fantasy world the hard way, on his own, with a hodgepodge of bizarre skills. When infighting and chaos break out among his classmates, can this loner come to the rescue and keep the peace? Goblins gather around the fire to dance, since they have gathered fresh prey to eat. A boy witnesses them in silence, hoping to stay hidden. As he turns to walk away, he trips over a branch. This draws the goblins' attention, and they race to capture him. The hurrying assailant, who was originally alarmed by goblins, grinned as though his scheme was succeeding. This occurs when the goblins unconsciously fall into a pit. As any other typical high school student, Haruka spends his days reading in class. Since he wouldn't have much time for books if he spent his time with his peers, the child is a true loner. Should he need to partition his class into factions, he could designate the delinquents, the Valley of the Girls, the cerebral jocks with muscle, the card-playing geeks, and the responsible class reps. But if he had to choose, he most likely belongs to the group of individuals without a group. His classmates are startled when he approaches the desk to rest his head. Haruka recognizes that the circle he reads about in his light novels is a magic circle, but soon settles down, realizing that he is about to be isekai and that this sounds like a huge headache. He walks calmly to the door, but to his annoyance, it's locked. In the meantime, the class is so astonished that nobody is paying attention to him as he tries numerous strategies to unlock the door, but nothing works. Haruka leaps to the roof because he sees just one way out of having to work. Even if he succeeds in reaching into the vent, the magic circle follows him, so he is unable to rejoice. After being carried away, he awakens in a white chamber. He believes he is expected to meet a gorgeous princess or a plump monarch. Therefore, this perplexes him. Soon after, an elderly man emerges and looks about. As soon as he sees Haruka, he starts talking quickly, stating that he was the last to choose his stats because his classmates had already been sent to another planet. Abruptly, a brilliant light flashes, and a massive scoreboard displaying stats and weaponry appears in front of it. This seems to be the first occasion where the elderly man called for more than 40 people. With all the overpowered skills and items already gone, since it's a first-come, first-served type of system. Much to his annoyance, he sees that all that is left is the villager set 1 and a pair of contact lenses with the traveler's stick. He wanted to get cool job titles to be a paladin or sage, maybe skills to throw fire, but all he has available is how to be a good employee or hobo. He shakes the old man as he irresponsibly summons more people than he can handle. Eventually, the old man can't take it and decides to give him all the leftover skills no one wanted. Teleporting him into the wild to start his adventuring, inside his starter kit he sees boots, a cloak, magic ring, and books. When he tries to check his stats, the system tells him to allocate his stats by first rolling a dice. This makes him remember the useless skill no one wanted that has the target roll a dice. Rolling the dice, they land on a pair of M's. Not understanding what this means, he decides to go big like he's at a casino and put all his points into luck. Opening his status bar, he sees all his points but SP be at 10, except for his luck stat that's maxed out. Scrolling down, he notices 2 other stats, being the loner icon. It seems that his peers formed a party as soon as he came, but he's a loner. He weeps quietly because he will never be able to own an isekai harem like the true chads of this planet. He doesn't see his classmates when he looks around, but he quickly gets over it. He can't party with them, after all. Haruka will now have to face this fantastical world alone, using a jumble of strange abilities and the hard way, deciding that he has created a safe haven for himself, because he would be destroyed if a monster materialized while he was asleep. When he enters the god's contacts, he is astounded to learn that this gives him the ability to appraise the surroundings and locate precious objects. It's incredible, since it enables him to quickly locate edible food, This ability alone makes him regret being a typical villager. He swiftly discovers a creek and refills his water container with pure water. When he eventually comes upon a cave, he is happy to see that it is nice and roomy and free of monsters. He has a lantern and a tent, so he doesn't have to worry about the outdoors, and he smiles viciously. He raises the level of his fire magic by heating a fire with temperature magic. He discovers that he is also skilled at perceiving enemies. Haruko yawns and goes to sleep in his tent. When he decides it's time for breakfast after awakening hungry, he gets out some jerky beef and cooks it over the fire. Finally, adding salt to add flavor would be the last thing he could do for breakfast. He hears something nearby while he forages for food, and when he looks, he finds 2 goblins. He starts to lament his luck while he ducks his head. He had hoped they would be mob monsters, but because of their high stats, he cannot treat them lightly. Haruko assumes that in order to have his stick ready to attack, he will eventually need to fight. He surmises that he might be able to stuff it full of magical power using the packing skill. Haruka is adamant since his plan is working, concluding that he can become an operator even without any ops experience. He leaps into the air, stunning the first target as he lands. He manages to knock the first goblin out with a few more swings. The second goblin is enraged over his friend's attack and charges at Haruka. Haruka can easily dodge every assault and realizes that his attack style is rudimentary. He is able to hit it hard and then use a magical projectile to seal the deal. Grinning at himself for making it through his first battle, he cleans himself in the river. He is pleased that he has leveled up and increased his sensitivity in the cave. Haruka merely hopes that he is not taken prisoner by goblins, much like a female knight. Make him play Uno till he passes away. Guessing by his progress, he guesses he might be able to improve physical stats with exercise and be able to amplify attacks with his stick using magic. On day 3, he's lost his motivation to continue like this, as all he's eaten is mushrooms. He's sure the class representative would be giving him an ear full for this. With his physical attack and defense stat booster skill named Rap, he feels he could take on 100 housewives trying to get a bargain at the supermarket. He goes out the cave and finds a mushroom, but soon throws it on the ground as he came out here for things other than mushrooms. Using magic Rap, he's able to run as fast as ninjas. Finding goblins, he swiftly defeats them, but is quickly frightened when he sees the goblin boss show up with more goblins. Running away, by day, he'd continue his goblin training, and at night, he'd begin his magic research. But this was more like do-it-yourself carpeting, decorating his base with tables, gates, and teacups. One night, he finally managed to find a rabbit. You know what that means? He found meat, something he can eat other than mushrooms. He manages to catch it, but before he can celebrate his appraisal, detects humans. He sees that it's the class delinquents from his past life. He keeps quiet as he wants nothing to do with them. Using clairvoyance, he notices another group, being the class gals, spotting next the nerds. He then spots representatives, pausing to look at her. The girl has been someone he's known since childhood. He walks to her, but soon stops himself, as his goal is to master this world alone. His perception skill sharpens as the delinquents come closer. As a man that enjoys his solitude, he quickly hides from these guys. As the boss delinquent is about to catch him, the rabbit he grabbed earlier runs out, but instead of chasing it, they laugh it off and walk away. At a riverside, Haruka sticks around so he can hear what they're up to. The lead delinquent is reminded of something while being here, that the vice representatives has a huge rack and heavy amount of back problems. Haruka sighs as these guys are still horny for girls. The guys continue as one guy prefers the shy girl from the swim team. Haruka isn't worried since the class representative Tuka will stop them. She's been a vanguard for people since elementary school. He's brought out of his thoughts as the guys mention how Tanaka's abilities will help them do what they want. Haruka remembers that name. As the group of delinquents walk off, he assumes the class is in trouble, but he leaves as it has nothing to do with him. At home, he's shocked to see his loner level go up by 1. Assuming it's because he avoided his class. He feels a bit discouraging by his title of NEET, as this means the more of a loner he is, the stronger he gets. Luckily, because of these abilities, he managed to turn the cave into an almost modern apartment. Finishing his dinner, he decides that he needs some fish since it's so hard to catch meat. On the night of day 7, he's able to sense something wrong in the woods, assuming it's the delinquents acting up. But when he goes to search for the class, he sees them having a problem dealing with goblins. Even with more fancier weapons, they're out there barely able to handle them. Haruka laughs as the nerds as they can't handle them, appraising them. He's full of rage as they all have better stats than him. Then he remembers that in class, he was the abnormal one, being a school filled with athletes, prodigies, kids of celebrities. He wonders how a normal kid like him wound up there. As he turns to leave seeing then handle it, he notices some goblins about to attack them from behind. He saves them, then decides to call out to them. The nerds thank him for the assistance, and they walk and catch up. He notices that being so long away from humans was making him lose how to talk. He takes them back to his private cave. Inside, the group is really impressed. The nerds tell him it's not fair he has all this stuff from Earth with him, but they're still polite. He decides to ask them about the class, making them all a glass of tea. The boys look down, not knowing what to say. It's until Nerd A Tatsuya Oda reveals the truth. As the nerds are on the run, this shocks Haruka. It turns out that on the day he wasn't transported with the group in the forest, many of the girls were crying for their mothers, as they truly were in another world. While everyone is panicking, not knowing what to do, the nerds, being fans of isekai, are more than calm, but rather excited. Tatsuya was the first to open the stat bar. Before they can start to explore what they can do, the main delinquent Shio, delinquent A Katsuyama, threatens to pummel the nerds if they don't tell them all they know right now. Class rep Tukatsuyuri tries to calm everyone down and explain what an isekai is, but they're ambushed by a bunch of goblins who recognize easy prey. Everyone is frightened by the goblins. Funny enough, even the delinquents who act tough were no match. But naturally, the nerds have to be the ones like always to save they day. The jocks, being the strongest, quickly adapted, and with the combined efforts of the groups, they were able to defeat 20 goblins. The class rep gains everyone's attention, and they follow them to a safe riverside clearing. They divide into groups to learn basic survival skills, and naturally the nerds take control as they have both survival and isekai knowledge. And the class rep was able to separate everyone in groups: night watch, cooking, gathering, surveying, and day watch. All of them worked as one until the lead gal Wakana Shimazaki asked why they should work. Tuka tried to convince them to speak, but they weren't interested. With this one by one, everyone left, deciding to do things on their own. From that point on, the only ones working were the nerds and class rep, while everyone else just laid around, leaving the nerds the only ones that fought to protect the camp. Tatsuya noticed back with the old man that the delinquents picked skills that let them charm and control people like puppets. Luckily for them, they're not strong enough to use those skills. So both groups would train to keep the other in check. One night, they heard the harem plan the delinquents were talking about. Hearing their plan, they rushed back to the class rep to tell her. She decides that she'll also have to level up, but it seemed she ran out of time, as in a few days, they were able to level up their charm. The class rep was on night watch, seeming like a pig ready for the slaughter. But as they approached her, the nerds managed to seal them. They then instruct the class rep to bind their puppet skill. Afterwards, they revealed the forced harem plan to the rest of the camp, exposing them, forcing them to run out of the camp. You'd think everything would be fine, but in a few days, the delinquents came back, destroying the camp and attacking the other students. Looking to run the nerds out the camp. For this, the gals really let the nerds have it, blaming the nerds for wanting to pick a fight, which was insanely dumb to do, because if they nerds weren't there, they'd be either dead or slaves to the delinquents. But of course, people were too mad to think about that. The class rep came to their defense, but the hate was too much, and they left. Hearing their sad story, Haruka takes them in, and they have a mushroom feast. The next day, he sends them off with food. Tatsuya stops to ask why he isn't coming with them to be adventurers. As compared to the rest of the class, he's the closest to them. Haruka admits they did share books together, but declines, much to their disappointment. The reason he did this was because he felt he'd only hold them back with his terrible starter kit. He decides to check on the class rep, since they were worried about them. But he encounters a kobold, but after some work, he he manages to knock it out. At the destroyed campsite, he can see the spot of the burnt tents, but no people. He's able to spot the footmarks of people. The gals spot him, marking an end to his quiet loner life. She recognizes him as a part of Oda's group, as they want to apologize. They've been searching for his group because they now realized his group was the ones keeping them alive up until now. But he stops them asking if they really want to apologize or moosh off the group, asking if they're willing to learn how to survive and defeat monsters. The girls start to cry as they don't want to be eaten by monsters, beginning to ask that they teach him how to survive. In all their pleads, he ends up accepting. This activates the Subjugate skill because he said yes. Looking at the party list, he sees them, making him scream in horror. The three follow him with dead fish eyes, which really worries him. When they face an enemy, the girls would just come out of nowhere and stab it multiple times. Then, pull out magic crystals to give back to him, then smile at him like a house pet, waiting for their master to praise them. They've lost their ability to speak normally. He just knows he'd get a mouthful of nagging if the class rep saw this. At that moment, his worst nightmare comes true as the class rep spots him instantly and runs to him. Haruka is still too depressed in his unneat world to pay attention. Around a fire, the delinquents with the weapons discuss their plans on taking the girls and eliminating their obstacles. 3 Tuka is annoyed that after all this time, he still calls her class rep and not her name. Soon a group of tired girls catch up to Tuka. Haruka notices that all the girls in the group are stuck together, except for the gals. Tuka notices that Shimazaki seems a bit off. Noticing his nervous face, she stares at him as if he's guilty. Remembering their plea to get stronger, he doesn't know how to explain this. Hearing his story of subjecting them, she takes a moment of silence, then begins to nag him, as this skill is supposed to be used on monsters. The entire female population looks at him like human garbage. He's sure that one of them has to be an ice mage, based on their cold stares. As he turns to leave the girls to stop him, he cries as he can't even go home to be a loner again. Luckily, the class rep is able to use her skills to counter puppet skills, shaking the girl to wake up when Shimazaki wakes up. Just to make sure, he wants to hear the girls explain the situation. As Haruka tries to walk away, she tells him to sit down like his mom. As the girls have their girl talk, Haruka decides he'd better expand his house, deciding to make a basement. But his magic backfires, and he ends up using the decapitation jutsu. Tuka yells at him, asking why he'd bury himself. Tuka compares him to a cat that likes tight spaces. She easily pulls him up, saying that Shimazaki told them what happened. They thank him for coming here to help all of them, even though Haruka didn't say that. As he tries to leave to go home, they stop him, reminding him to come and help them. Tuka tilts her head, asking what home he is going to. Haruka absent-mindedly tells her his house. Tuka is confused, asking if he was born in this world. Haruka said he had time on his hands and built a house. Tuka yells at me because building a house is not something people do in their spare time. The other girls are amazed and happy to live in a house. The class rep blows her whistle, having another girls-only meeting. Tuka questions him on how many people he can fit in his house. Haruka tells her 240. This shocks them, but he'd have to move the furniture around, which really makes them want to see this legendary home. If you add a kitchen and bathroom, Tuka has to ask what kind of mansion Haruka managed to live in. The girl pouts, as they've been barely able to hold on surviving, and here he is living alone in a mansion. The girls approve and turn to the class rep. Tuka shyly asks if they can live with him, knowing it's a lot to ask. Even if it's for the night, Haruka can't help but daydream about the sight that awaits him. Tuka scolds him to keep those night games to himself. Haruka, using his navigation skills, begins to guide the girls to his house, which turns out to be a long walk. Tuka has to ask if he built a convenience store. Haruka admits he thought about it, but changed his mind. By the time they reach his house, the girls are all tired, complaining that he moves too fast. Like any good host, he's smug to show them around his house. The girls cry as they don't have to sleep in tents anymore. Haruka is a bit embarrassed that they like this place more than the nerds. As he tries to show them to the kitchen and bath, the moment he says bath, he's gifted with a sight only spoken about in legends. The girls throw their clothes off and jump in the bath. Haruka believes that all this time in the wild has turned them into savages that have no shame. Like a true loner, he goes to camp alone in the woods. It's not like he's afraid to talk to girls. The class rep pouts at him, but thanks him because the other boys left after the girls nagged Oda's group. Tuka cries as she's had a tough time, trying to manage people, but she's unable to protect them like Oda did. Haruka notices she's had it tough. He comforts her as those guys were born for this world. This makes her feel better, but using his logic, he's even weirder as he has better resources compared to them. Tuka heads back as the girls peacefully dream. Meanwhile, Haruka is having a hard time keeping his boner fantasizing about all the girls back at his house. When he wakes up, Chika Fish Girl Tsunami greets him as breakfast is already ready for him. Haruka can't decide what archetype he fits, maybe cute little sister or the neighborhood girl. The girl crawls over to him, making him blush. Changing the topic, he asks her what's for breakfast. He's shocked to hear it's mushrooms with grilled fish. Haruka is happy to finally eat fish again. Tuka is confused as he picks a spot close to the river. Haruka admits it's true, but he doesn't know how to catch fish. Apparently, the vice president has lightning abilities and would throw it at the water, catching a bunch of fish. He begs her to do it again. Amame is annoyed and tells him to watch closely. When she gathers the lightning in her hand, Haruka forms an invisible box around it. With the packing skill, he's able to now have lightning magic. Tuka praises him, as this means he can copy abilities, calling it Overpowered. While the gal girls are playing in the water, Haruka decides to ask Tuka what the girls plan to do. The girls haven't come to an agreement, but they are thinking about heading to a town. This does remind him that the girls are hunting down to find the nerds. The girls are embarrassed, not wanting him to say it like that, as it sounds like they're stalkers. That day, he decides to help them train. After hearing their levels fluctuate from 21 to 16, he's sad as their overpowered skills make them a higher level than him. Deciding to test them, he has them fight against the kobolds. The girls are smug after hearing their level 8, but they soon pass out as the kobolds win round 1. It was a pathetic loss that makes him lost for words. In his tent, he complains how the girls discuss their strategy meeting in his tent. When they are motivated to fight again, the girl from this morning shyly apologizes to him as the attack from the boys earlier traumatized her. This makes him sympathize with the girls as they've been through a lot, giving her the nickname Fish Girl, much to her annoyance. The next day, while he enjoys his meal, he overhears an argument between the gal leader and class rep. The class rep wants them to seriously train, as the gal leader would run away when it's too tough. Some girls would be down in seconds, while others would fake injury to get out of fighting. This time is different, as the fish girl and gal leader work together to take down a kobold. After the girls manage to defeat them, they shake hands and congratulate each other. Konoka goes as far to recognize a kobold as an honored ally. Still, this makes him happy, as now he can get back to his loner life away from the girls. Tuka comes up to thank him, as now they can travel to the town together. This surprises him, as he never said he'd come with them. Tuka reapers what she said with a sickly sweet smile that promises pain if he argues. With that, they all head out to find a town. In the forest, another male student runs frantically through the rain. He's chased by a hooded figure who's after their skills. The student begs for his life, but is killed.
This is where we're going to have to leave off for today. If you like this video, here's another one just like it that you should check out. I will be breaking this anime down into multiple parts. Now, if you liked this video, make sure to like the video. Why not subscribe? I'll be uploading daily videos like this one. I'll see you next time.